Good evening, everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Habayim. We're continuing our Shiurim. Tonight, of course, is our last year before Purim, Habaleinu L'Tova. And the Shiurim are generously sponsored by Dr. Zakim and Shvachta Le'nishmas of Shlomo Eliezer ben Rabbi Yaakov Zakheim, Rivka Bas Tavi Alevi, Reb Dov ben Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi HaKoyin. The Shiurim of Chodesh Adar are dedicated by the Yom Tobian family of Great Neck in memory of Miriam Bas Rachel, whose 12th yard site is Tes Zayin Adar. Tonight's shir is dedicated anonymously by my friend the Eretz Yisrael, wishing everyone an easy fast and Purim Sameach. And tonight's shir is dedicated in honor of the birthday of Zev ben Rikol. He should have health, nachas, and the light of Torah always amongst all of Klal Yisrael, dedicated by his children. Tonight's shir is also dedicated by the Ryabinsky and Ruzhin family in honor of the yard site of Rav Chida and in honor of their grandson Shlomo Eliezer. They should see a lot of nachas. Also, on behalf of the whole shir, we want to wish a special mazel tov to Reb Shlomi Edinger on the birth of a baby boy. Tonight is the Brit Yitzchak. Tomorrow is the Bris Milah. And we wish him Tizka Lagadloi, Lator L'chupa L'masam Tovim. Stender is also dedicating the shir. Le'iloi Nishmas. Ramosha Feinstein, Rafi will send the invoice after. Okay. Now, it's not too late. First of all, there are three different kinds of shachmanos you could send. One that has the Hebrew Sefer, one that has the English Sefer, and unbeknownst to me, our school republished the mini Sefer so that you could put it in your shachmanos. David, do you have them yet to put in your shachmanos? Now you will. Okay. Okay, everyone, welcome. We have an amazing topic tonight, really material out of this world. And here we go. 3 times in Tanakh, we find the following word. This word appears 3 times in Tanakh. V'nishma. V'nishma. Where are the 3 times? One in last week's parsha. V'nishma koiloi b'vay ala kodesh. It says by the Me'il, the Kohen Gadol walks and there are bells on the bottom, and his sound will be heard as he goes into the Kodesh. The other time it says V'nishma is in connection to Kabbalah Torah. Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh V'nishma. And then the third time it says V'nishma piskam hamelach in Megillah Esther. It says V'nishma piskam hamelach asher yaseh b'chol malchusoi ki rabahi. So it says it by Torah, it says it by Avodah, and it says it by Megillah Esther. Says about Turim. This is a remez to the following 2 halachos. What do you do if you have a conflict between doing the Avodah and the Beis Hamikdash and Megillah Esther? It's time for the carbon tamid. It's time to bring a carbon. It's time to bring a chatas, an asham. So it's either you bring the carbon or you hear the Megillah. What takes precedence? So the Gemara says in Megillah, Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, Lahavi mishpachos kahuna ulavia shemevatlin avodasan ubaim l'shmaya mikra Megillah. You stop doing the avodah and you come to hear the Megillah. And the Megillah trumps the avodah and the Beis Hamikdash. Even though the avodah and the Beis Hamikdash is daraisa and Megillah is midivrei neviim, the Megillah takes precedence. Furthermore, what if you're in the middle of learning? You could be learning Torah, and it comes time to read the Megillah. What do? You stop learning Torah and you go to hear the Megillah. Mevatlin Talmud Torah uban l'shmaya mikra Megillah. Right? The Gemara says, Mikan samchu shel beis Rebbe, mevatlin Talmud Torah uban l'shmaya mikra Megillah. So that means Megillah trumps Avodah, Megillah trumps Torah. Where is there a remez? 3 times it says V'nishma. It says V'nishma by Avodah. V'nishma koiloi b'vay ala kodesh. It says V'nishma by Megillah. V'nishma piskam hamelach b'chomasa kirabahi v'nishma piskam hamelach. So what do you do if it's between v'nishma koiloi b'vay ala kodesh and v'nishma piskam hamelach? V'nishma piskam hamelach. Why? Kirabahi. It's greater. Megillah is greater. What do you do if you could be doing Talmud Torah, Nasa v'nishma, or you could be listening to the Megillah? V'nishma piskam hamelach. What do? Megillah. Why? Kirabahi. Megillah is greater than Talmud Torah. Megillah is greater than the Avodah. Furthermore, who says Megillah is greater than Talmud Torah? Who says Megillah is greater than the Avodah? Rabbah. Rabba is the man the Amar in the Gemara that mevatlan Talmud Torah ban l'shma mikra Megillah. Rabba is the one who says we're mevatel the avoida. Ki Rabba he, Rabba's the man. Even though if you look in our Gemara, it's Rabba. It's not Rabba. But the Baal HaTurim is going lefi a gersa that he's the only one who has this gersa, that the Baal HaMemra is Rabba. Now this Baal HaTurim plagued me. It really bothers me. You know why? Because would you say the reason why we come to hear the Megillah, if we're in the middle of learning or middle of doing the Avodah, is because Megillah is greater? Megillah is not greater. Megillah, you wouldn't say it's greater. The halacha is you're mevatel you're always mevatel learning with avodah for a mitzvah iveres. Because if you don't stop the avodah or you don't stop learning, you'll never be mekayim a mitzvah. You're always mevatel from Torah to do a mitzvah. You stop learning to put on tefillin. You stop learning to do any mitzvah. If your friend needs help, you stop learning to help him. Doesn't mean helping him is greater than learning. No, learning is greater than helping him. It's just you have to stop learning to help him. So why does the Baal HaTurim say Rabbahi, it's greater. Even the words he uses are adif tvei. It's greater. It's stronger. Mikra Megillah is greater. Mikra Megillah is greater than Torah. Could you say such a thing? Mikra Megillah is greater than Torah. It's not greater. It's just you have to do it, because if you don't do it now, you're not gonna get the mitzvah of Mikra Megillah. Why does the Baal HaTurim say it's greater? Okay, I'm going to share with you now the most astounding words, perhaps, in all the writing of the Chassam Sofer. Now, we've said over this Chassam Sofer in the past, but we never explained it this way. Chassam Sofer, it's in the Drashas Chassam Sofer. He says something that the Chassam Sofer would not have written this. Maybe you would have said that this is heresy. Only the Chassam Sofer could say such a thing. Chassam Sofer writes, Sha'ar Kadosh HaKolol b'Megillah, the holy light that is encapsulated in Megillah Esther, who mamish yoiser gadol, is actually greater, v'nichbad, and more honorable, mitarasenu akdosh v'atzma, than the Torah itself. The light in the Megillah is greater than the light in the Torah itself. What? How can you say such a thing? The light in the Megillah is greater than the Torah? I mean, question, are you allowed to put Sefer Yehoshua on top of the Chumash? No. Are you allowed to put Megillah Esther on top of the Chumash? No. So how could the Chassam Sofer say the light of Megillah Esther is greater than the light of the Torah itself? What does the Chassam Sofer even mean? Where did he get this from? The light of the Torah is greater than the light of the Megillah? Okay, friends, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. There's a Medrash Rabbah. You're about to see a Chiddush that you could not have even dreamed was possible. Says the Medrash Rabbah, Rab Chanina bar Yitzchak Amar, Shloisha Noivloisein. There are three things in this world that are a semblance of the real thing. Noiveles Misa Sheina, a semblance of death is sleep. So let's say you see somebody, they're sleeping during the share. What are they doing? They're dead. They decided to die during the share. Could be it's more pleasurable for them. But sleep is a semblance of death. Where were you this morning? I decided to die late. Yeah. How do you spend Shabbos afternoon? I died. Sleep is a me'ain of death. If you enjoy death, then you'll enjoy sleep. Because in both states, you can't accomplish anything. Okay. Noivelas nevuah chalaim, a semblance of prophecy is a dream. A dream is a semblance of prophecy. Noivelas ha'olam haba Shabbos, the semblance of the world to come, is Shabbos. Okay, there are Gemaras that add a semblance of the mun is honey. Rab Avin Moisef Oitartan, Rab Avin added another two. Noivelas oira shamala, a semblance of the light on high, Galgal Chama, is the orb of the sun. Noiveles Chachma Shamala Torah. A semblance of the wisdom on high is the Torah. You hear what this Medrash is saying? You would have thought that the highest form of Chachma is the Torah. No, the Torah is only a semblance of Chachma. The Torah is only a semblance of Chachma al Yaina. Meaning, there's something upstairs called Chachma al Yaina, of which our Torah is only a semblance of. Just like sleep is a 60th of death, the Torah is like a 60th of the Chachma Elyoina. Who could have even thought such a thing? Let's explain it first. When you're learning Torah, when you're learning, I don't know, Baba Kama, you're learning Masechta Nedarim, so you're learning about vows. Is that Hashem's wisdom? Or is that Hashem's wisdom filtered down into this world in a way that a basar v'dam could understand? Torah is Hashem cloaked his wisdom in terminology and in concept so that our brains of basar v'dam could comprehend it and assimilate it. But it's not the actual Chachma Shemayla. The actual Chachma Shemayla is on a much greater level. Wow, interesting. So, do we ever access the Chachma Shemayla? Is there any body of information that was ever given to the Jewish people that's not just Torah, but it's from that supernal, elevated, lofty body of information that's even greater than the Torah? Introducing Torah Barakas. Okay, I'm not, even though it's almost Purim, and I have jokes to say, I'm not going to say it. Torah Barakas. Baruch Shekivanta to what I didn't say. Very good. Torah Barakas. Torah Barakas was written by Reb Chaim HaKohen. The Chidah says, who is Reb Chaim HaKohen? Reb Chaim HaKohen was a student of Reb Chaim Vital. He lived in Aleppo in Syria. He was one of the first to write a commentary on Shulchan Aruch al pi Kabbalah. He wrote a commentary on Shulchan Aruch al pi Kabbalah. He wrote on the entire Shulchan Aruch. We only have Archaim Yaradea. It's called Makar Chaim. It's divided into 12 sections for the names of the 12 Turim of the Choshen. We have Torah Oidem for daily laws. We have Torah Barekes on the Yomim Tovim. Torah Yahaloim on Avelos. He wrote a Sefer, Torah's Chacham. The Chidah writes in the Shem HaGdolim, he saw a manuscript of the Torah Barekes on Megillas Esther. Wow, if only I could get my hands on it. This is it. What the Chidah saw as a manuscript, the purest of Rabbi Chaim HaKohen, the student of Rabbi Chaim Esther, I have it in my hands. It was published by my friend Reb Shmaya Itzhak Halevi, who we had in the shul on Sunday. He got the manuscript and he published it, 2 volumes. One on Pshat, one on Pardes. Okay? When did he do it? In the 1600s. My friend, no, he wrote it 2 years ago. What?
Just now, recently?
Yeah, just now. Yeah. Now, the Reb Chaim HaKohen also wrote a Perush on Rus. It was plagiarized by someone, I'm not going to say the name, one of the Achronim, but the Chidah was written by Reb Chaim HaKohen. He wrote Tikkun Chatzos. The tefillos of Tikkun Chatzos that are printed in the Siddur were written by Reb Chaim HaKohen. Reb Chaim HaKohen lived in Syria. The thing is, the Syrian printing presses, they're not too great. So he decided to travel to Europe, and he passed away in Leghorn. Where's Leghorn? Livorno. I was zocheh to be at his kever in Livorno. He's buried in the same row as where the Chidah was originally buried. Okay, Reb Chaim HaKohen, Torah Barekes. Comes Reb Chaim HaKohen, and he has by the way, do you remember we had the shir of the hostages that were held by the pirates of Malta? He was one of the hostages that we spoke about. The Torah Barekes says, there's something called Torah, but there's something greater than Torah. What is that? Chachma Elyoina. Bereshis, Shemois, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim is Torah. But there's one document that allows us to access some of Chachma Elyoina that's even greater than Torah. You know what that is? Megillah Esther. Megillah Esther is from the Chachma Elyoina itself. Megillah Esther, in a way, is greater than Torah. It's a level of Chachma on a higher level than Torah. How that jives with the fact that you can't put a Megillah Esther on Torah, that means that we don't have the ability necessary to access that Chachma Elyoina. But nevertheless, there is Chachma Elyoina encapsulated in Megillah Esther that is greater than the Torah itself. I'll give you one example. I remember, must go back 10 years ago, when I was a rabbi in Queens, someone came over to me And I once spoke about, the famous remez to the hanging of the 10 Nazis in 1947, Tav Shin Zayin. You have the little Tav Shin and Zayin and the big Vav. And he said, I can't believe it. Somebody told me, I remember this very clearly. He says, this is the most open verification of the divine origin of the Torah, that a document written 2,000 years earlier has a date of a future event of hanging of 10 Nazis. How's that even possible? How's that possible? That a document written 2,000 years ago has a future prediction of a date 2,000 years later. Why is that? Will you find open prophecies in the Chumash like you have in Megillah Esther? No, the Chumash is Torah. This is literally the rawest form of divine wisdom. This is Chachma Al Yaina. Says the Torah Barekes. That's why Mevatlin Talmud Torah Ubain Lishmaya Mikra Megillah. You know why you're Mevatel Torah here in the Megillah? Because the Megillah is greater than Torah. By the way, I believe this would explain the words of the Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer says, Sha'ar Kadosh HaKolol B'Megillah Hu Mamish Yoser Gadol V'Nichvad Mitorasenu HaKdosha Ba'atzma. No, the Chassam Sofer does not quote the Torah Barekes. I heard from the Shvilei Pinchas, I want to give credit to the Shvilei Pinchas, that he used this Torah Barekes to explain these words of the Chassam Sofer. I would humbly add that this explains the words of the Baal HaTurim. The Baal HaTurim says, Ki Rabahi, the Megillah is greater. The Baal HaTurim says, Alma da'adiv tfei, it's stronger. Why is the Megillah Esther stronger? Like Torah Barekes writes, that the Megillah is from the Chachma Ha'Elyoina, which is even greater than the Torah itself.
But it begs the question that Megillah is really like a historical,
You're saying the Megillah is a historical document. So actually, the one thing that the Megillah is not is it's not a historical document because it ends. You got the wrong book. You want to know the palace intrigue? You want to know the history? Now, if you want to hear the whole reading of the Megillah, you could come to our shul tomorrow night. Because I'm not going to do the whole thing tonight. We'll get through most of it. Tomorrow night, you're welcome to come to hear the Megillah. Hopefully, in the shuls that you go to, they'll do shvanach. They'll stop by every tipcha, and you'll be yotzei the mitzvah. Or you could come to 530 Peninsula Boulevard, and hopefully, Bez Hashem, you'll be yotzei the mitzvah. Okay.
Was it written by?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't write it.
Benavua?
Yes. Did she write it Benavua? Sure. Yes. She wrote Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. It's machlokes. Not everybody says that. Shmuel says not. But we passing like Rabbi Lezer that Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra. Okay. So we're studying this great teaching of the Torah Barekes. Torah Barekes says that the light that's contained in Megillah Esther is greater than the Torah itself, which is an amazing idea. To think about it. That means tomorrow night, you're gonna, if you're smart enough to go to shul where you could actually hear the words, you're going to access the wisdom of divine information greater than the Torah itself. Comes the Arizal. The Arizal says, "La'asalavai, all the svarim will become batal except for Megillah Esther." Why? Not only like Torah Barekes. In other words, where did the Torah Barekes get this idea from? That the light of Megillah Esther is greater than the light of the Torah itself. The Arizal writes, "La'olam lo'haya nes gadol kazeh." The miracle of Purim was the greatest miracle in history. The light of Purim is the greatest light in history. Loi b'Shabbosos, v'loi b'yomim tovim. Not on Shabbos and Ayam, meaning the light of Shabbos will not last as eternally as the light of Megillah as Purim. V'loi b'Yom Tov. Only Purim. And then, if you look in Pri Etz Chaim Vital brings from Arizal, Hashem wanted to be mative to Klal Yisrael. Hashem wanted to illuminate for Klal Yisrael. And every single year, during Purim, when the miracle happened, this light that came down in the times of the original miracle will come down again and will last forever and ever. Loi b'Shabbos, v'loi b'Yom Tov. Chazal say, Kol hamoyadim asilim libatel, chutz mi Purim. Says Ari, Kihi Ha'ara Ashemei Olam Loiniyasa Kamayu. It's a light that never was in the history of the world. Was there such a light like Purim? And where did Ari get this from? Mehechan Yatsa Ari Chidush Zeh. Where did Ari get that there was never a light as great as the light of Purim? It's an open medrash. The medrash says in Esther Rabbah Parshiyud Ois Yud, V'hayal Hashem Lashem Zeh Hanes Sha'asha Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shaloi Naaseh Kamayu. There was never such a miracle. Purim is the greatest miracle in our whole calendar. By the way, just going back to this idea that there's Torah and then there's Chachma Ha'alyoina, the Bnei Yissaschar in many, many places, he brings this idea, he refers to this idea that there's Torah, there's even a higher level of Chachma Alyoina. The Torah is a noivel, a semblance of Chachma Alyoina. That's why the sages are called Chachamim, because they access the Chachma Alyoina even lamala min Torah. Now listen to this. Do you know the pasuk? Am naval v'loy chacham. Translate. Am naval. Literally, what's a naval? Disgusting person. Says Targum Yonassim Nazil, Am naval, ama de kabilo iraisa. Naval means the nation that accepted the Torah. How does naval mean to accept the Torah? The Targum is translating naval miloshan noivlois, like a semblance of the Chachma Yaina. Am naval, the nation that got the semblance of the Chachma Yaina, which is the Torah. Everything I said so far, you're supposed to have known already. Okay? That was all introduction to what we're about to do. Now, the second half of this year, you're also supposed to know, because it was from a shir a couple weeks ago. All we're doing now is putting together two classics. I don't know why I never thought of it. Okay? So classic number one is Megillah Esther is literally greater than the Torah. How could such a thing be? It comes from the Chachma Yaina, which is even above and beyond the Torah. La Yehudim Haisa'ira V'Simcha V'Sasayin Vikar. So now if your Baal Kari reads it, La Yehudim Haisa'ira V'Simcha, so he ran over the Tipcha, and the Mishnah Bro says you have to do lane again. So if you have all night, try whatever place you want. You just have to make sure the Baal Kari knows what a tip. If he doesn't know what a tipcha is, V'Vadai Machzira Noisai, Mishnah Bro says. Just pointing that out. Every tipcha, when you lane, you have to have slight pause. So you say, is that, does everyone have to keep that? Yeah, not everyone. Goyim don't have to stop by a tipcha. When a Gentile reads Megillah Esther, they don't have to stop by a tipcha. Only Jews. Okay? Now, I thought you might want to know that. What does it mean, La Yehudim Hoisa Oira? The Jews had light. What do you mean they had? This is Megillah Esther. It's recording the story. They have light. What do you mean they had light? Why Lashon Avar? It's only the most well-known pasuk in the Megillah. La Yehudim Ha'isa. Also, when you sing the song, you don't have to stop by the tipcha. But when you lane, La Yehudim Ha'isa V'Simcha V'Sasayin Vikar. What do you mean they had? Was there another time in history that the Jewish people had light? Was there another time in history the Jewish people had light? Pause. Tipcha. Shloishes yamim ulchal b'nei Yisrael haya oyer. Pause. B'Moshe v'Isa. During Makas Choshech, nobody could see their brother. Nobody could stand up. Shloishes yamim. Ulachol b'nei Yisrael haya ar b'Moshe v'Isa. Remind me, somebody remind me to say something. I just thought of something like almost before the end. Okay, Ari, I'm going to check with you before the show. I have to say, okay, on this pasuk, loyro ishasach, comes the chida.
Why
And
did we just say that it was that or from Bereshis?
because
About that,
it says La Yehudim. It says La Yehudim, the Jews. So it has to be a time earlier in history that the Jews had light. Now we know by Makas Choshech, nobody could see, nobody could get up. And Bnei Yisrael had light in their domain. So for everyone else, it's dark. For Bnei Yisrael, it was light. Comes the Chida. Chida says, if you take the Soifei Tevos of Ulachol Bnei Yisrael Haya, Soifei Tevos Laila, that it was light for the Jewish people, even at night. So I sent a email to the Shvilei Pinchas, I think Sunday night. I didn't ask anything. It says, the Soifei Tevos of Ulachol Bnei Yisrael Haya is Laila. So I sent a message to the Shvilei Pinchas, because I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it be interesting if we could calculate the date of this Makkah? And I'm thinking to myself, well, we know two things. We know that Makkah's B'charis was the night of Pesach, Tesvav Nisan. We know Arba, which is the third to last, was Tu B'Shvat. So it's only reasonable, each Makkah was a month. So if Arba was Tu B'Shvat and Makkah's B'charis was Pesach, would it be out of this world if Makkah's Choshech was on Purim? And I was positive I once saw somewhere that Makkah's Choshech was on Purim. And I did a computer search, and I wasn't coming up with too much stuff. And the Shvilei Pinchas said yes, and he sent me a few Mar Makoimos that indeed Makkah's B'chayros was on Makkah's Choshech was on Purim. But I wanted to find in Rishonim. Some of the Mar Makoimos were like, a guy who lives down the block. I wanted to find in Rishonim that Makkah's Choshech was on Purim. Comes the Chida. Oyer. The word Or is Gematria Be'adar. Ki Ba'adar Haya. Makkah's Choshech was an Adar. V'chein b'mapalas Haman ksiv la Yehudim Hoysa Oira. Where does this come from? Rabbeinu Ephraim, one of the Rishonim. Rabbeinu Ephraim says, Hoysa Oira. L'sha'avar. When there was darkness in Mitzrayim, there was Or for Klal Yisrael. La Yehudim. It's not there's light now, only Hoysa. There was light back then at the same time of the year. When? In Adar. So 2 times in history, there was light in Adar. There was light in Adar by Makkah's Choshech, which was in Adar, and there was light for Klal Yisrael in the times of Purim. Actually, if you look in the El Yarabah, which is one of the great Achronim, he brings from the Sefer Amarkel that why did Haman schedule to kill Klal Yisrael in Adar? When in the whole Chumash do we find that any Jews died? When in the whole Chumash do we ever find any Jews died? Only one time. In a couple times. Makkah's Choshech. The Risha'im died. Haman says, when did that happen? Adar. Oh, this is the month. I'm going to get them now. I already have precedent. Jews died in Adar during the 3 days of Afela. Haman scheduled to annihilate the Jewish people in Adar because he had precedent that during Makkah's Choshech Jews died. But what he didn't know is that for the rest of us we had light. That's why it says Yehudim Hoysa Oira. Comes a Roikeach. Roikeach is one of the greatest Rishonim. I could not believe this. Says Roikeach. You know, when Esther and Mordechai killed all those Amalekim, you see at the end of the Megillah, they killed 75,000 and they killed thousands of Amalekim. 3 times it says, Uva biza aloi shalchu es yadam. They didn't take any spoils. Why not? Because they already have precedent during Makkah's Choshech when the lights were off. The Jews didn't take anything. So they learned, since it was La Yehudim Hoysa Oira, that this was a repeat, this was a reenactment of Makkah's Choshech, and the first time Makkah's Choshech, the Jews didn't take anything. So this time again, the Jews didn't take any of the spoils of the Amalekim. Now, says the Roikeach, Haman was killed on Pesach. But when were his sons killed? When were they killed? Yud Gimel Adar. All the Amalekim were killed on a Yud Gimel Adar. On the day that Haman wanted to kill the Jewish people, he wanted to kill us on Yud Gimel Adar. Why do we fast on Yud Gimel Adar? You know why we're going to fast tomorrow? Tomorrow is Makkah's Choshech. You have to be careful. You have to be careful tomorrow. Tomorrow is a dangerous day. It's the day of Makas Choshech. Some Jews didn't make it. Some Jews did. So historically, it's seared into the day. It's a dangerous day. Now we're going to come to the biggest question of all.
Yeah. Why did they,
First Haman died. Haman died on Pesach. And then at the end of the year, his sons died.
the following,
Yeah.
the following Purim?
Yeah, not the following Purim, 11 months later.
11?
Yeah, they got that special undershirt with their names printed on it. Ve'ez Parshandasa, Ve'ez Dalfin, Ve'ez Aspasa, Ve'ez Pairasa. They were all wearing it. No, nobody knows what they were wearing, right? We don't have any documentation. I can't say which sefer I saw it in, but they were wearing those undershirts. You know, it says their names. Okay, that's just the special chiddush. Okay, the Rekech is Megillah. The reason why the Klal Yisrael did not take any spoils, because this was the time of Makas Choshech. In Mitzrayim, Klal Yisrael didn't take anything. So too in the times of Purim, which was a repeat of Makas Choshech, Klal Yisrael didn't take anything. So La Yehudim Hoysa Oira is just a reenactment of Ulachol B'nei Yisrael Hayar b'Mashvaisam Ayam Menaira. Now, what's interesting is, even though the Rishonim say that the 3 days that Makas Choshech was an Adar, right? The Chida in the Nachal Kidumim says it was an Adar. The Roikeach seems to say it was Yud Gimel, Yud Daled, Tesvav. Those were the 3 days of darkness. Those were the 3 days of darkness. Now, what do we know about Makas Choshech? That for those who were in darkness, Loi Ro Ish Es Achiv. That's an interesting expression, Ish El Achiv. Where do we find in the Megillah Ish El Achiv? Right? We have Matanos LaVyonim, Ish Re'ehu. Mishloyach Manois, Ish El Re'ehu, Umatanos. So if you're in darkness, Loi Ro Ish Es Achiv. But if you're in light, conversely, the implicit diuk is you need to be roya ishas achiv. So the source of shalach manis, that's what I wanted to add, is alluded to. If Purim is a reenactment of loy ro ishas achiv, but ulcho b'nei Yisrael, yes, ro ishas achiv. So mishlach manis, the shreu is just a reenactment of that. Now, here's the main question: how is it that Purim is such a holy day? It's the day of the year of the greatest light. The wisdom of Megillah Esther is greater than the Torah itself. Is it strange to you that of all the days of the year, more people are in complete darkness on Purim than any other day? It is the most abused and misunderstood Yom Tov we have. Imagine if on Yom Kippur, people were running around, shikar like light, wasting the day. You would say, what happened to them? They're like, it's Makas Choshech. That's what Purim is. You have two choices. Purim, if you don't take advantage of the day, you will blow this day worse than any day the whole year. Because let's review another share that we had very recently. What caused the darkness in the times of Makas Choshech? That's question number one. Question number two, what does the Torah Barekas mean? And what does the Arizal mean? That the greatest light that ever came down to the world was Purim. Well, what is this light? What is this flashlight that God shines on the world on Purim? What is it? What is the source of the light? What is the nature of the light? What is the reality of the light? And why are so many people blinded by this light? The Chida writes that if on Purim people would sanctify themselves to fulfill the mitzvahs hayom and the rest of the day dedicate to Limud HaTorah, the Geula would come immediately. Is the day meant to be spent riding around in a limo, intoxicated, holding people up for money? I don't know. Who am I? I'm just telling you what the Chida says, that if you take advantage of the day, Mashiach would come immediately. It's the holiest day of the year, the day of the greatest light. Let's review what we learned in Parshas Bo by Makas Choshech. There was no Makas Choshech. You all remember this, I'm sure. There was no darkness that God brought down to the world. It's like a bat in sunlight cannot operate because the light is so blinding. It's like when you're driving down Peninsula Boulevard at like 6:50, and the sun is on the horizon, and you have to squint your eyes. You need to close your eyes to see. You need to put down what are they called?
Visor.
Visor? Okay. The visor to be able to see. Because the light is so bright that it causes darkness. What was Makas Choshech? What was the light that God brought down to the world from Makas Choshech that caused the darkness? What's that light called? No? Primordial light. Thank you. Or in Lashon HaKodesh, the Aragonas. Hashem brought the Aragonas to the world. That was L'chol B'nai Yisrael Haya Ar B'Moishvoisam, and that caused the darkness to the Mitzrayim, because the Mitzrayim had no connection to that light, so they had to go into darkness. So I ask you one simple thing. Here's the clincher of tonight. If the Rishonim are saying La Yehudim Hayisa, they had light because it's going back to L'chol B'nai Yisrael Haya Ar. In other words, if Purim is a reenactment of Makas Choshech, and the Torah Berekas is saying that in the times of Purim we were zoicha to a light that there never was in the history, then what must the light of Purim be? When the Megillah says, La Yehudim Haysa Oira, what is that Oira? It's the Aragonas. It's the Aragonas. And either you prepare yourself to assimilate it and to take advantage of it, or you're going to go into darkness and you're going to behave so backward and so corrupt that it's going to be like the Mitzrayim, loyro ish es achav loykamu ish mitachtav shloishes yamin. You're going to be lying in a drunken stupor. That's what happens when you're not prepared to deal with the kedusha of Purim. So you're saying we're not saying anything. There are no chidushim. Exactly. Once you have everything set up for you, it's a chidush noira in terms of understanding what's happening on Purim, but it's not a chidush because it becomes black and white. We learned from the Arizal, we learned from Torah Berekas, the greatest light in the history of the world is the light of Megillah Esther and the light of Purim. We learned from the Rishonim, the El Yarabah, the Rekeach, from Rabbeinu Ephraim, quoted by the Chida, that the Lashon of Hoysa Oira it wasn't a one-time light, it was a light that was evoking the light that was for Klal Yisrael in the times of Makas Choshech. We learned that during Makas Choshech there was no darkness, it was the Ar Haganos that caused the darkness. That is the light of Purim. Do you realize what the light of Purim is? It's the light of the Or Hagonos. Oira zu Torah. That's the light of the Or Hagonos is hidden in the Torah. Now, let's develop this further. That means Makas Choshech was 30 days before Pesach. The Chesed Avram, the great-grandfather of the Chida, says that starting 30 days before Pesach, Hashem began to take the Jewish people out of all the forces of Tumah. Do you remember that? We also mentioned that recently. That we were on the 49th level of Tumah, and in the course of 30 days, every day Hashem took us out one level, one level, one level. How did He take us out? Through a divine revelation. Moira Gadol, Zugi Lashina. When did that divine revelation start? Started I would suggest it started Makas Choshech, the Or Hagonos that came out. The Or Hagonos, the Makas Choshech, that divine light began to slowly prepare Klal Yisrael to purify them so that the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim they would be on the brink of Kedusha. In that case, Purim and Pesach are not two unconnected days. We know that the Geula will happen on Pesach. Last week we learned the start of destroying Amalek is Zachar. The end of destroying Amalek is Bir Chametz. But part of this process as well is Purim is the day of Makas Choshech. What does that mean, Makas Choshech? The Or Hagonos. It begins to prepare us, to bring us into Kedusha, so that the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim we're completely purified. Let's now develop this further. Okay, we're almost there. Did you know that by Makas Dam, when Paroi had enough, he says, Moshe Aaron, come! By Tzfardea, Paroi said, Moshe Aaron, come! By Kinim, Moshe Aaron, come! By Choshech, Paroi said, Moshe, come! Why not Aaron? So it says the Kliyakar, because Paroi knew that when Moshe was born, Nesmale kol habayis oira. the whole house is full of light. So he knew that Moshe had the power to brighten the darkness. So he says, this one, Moshe, just you come. Okay? So I'm thinking about this. How did Moshe brighten the darkness? He's shown. It says the Gemara in Soita, how do we know he's shown? It says, Vayar oisoi ki toivu. They saw he was good. And it says about the Ar Hagonos, Vayar Elikim es ha'ar ki toiv. Now, the Gemara doesn't say that Vayar Elikim es ha'ar ki toiv is talking about the Ar Hagonos. It just happens to be talking about the Ar Hagonos. But the Gemara makes a Gzeira Shava. It says, Vayar Vatera oisoi ki toiv, and it says, by light, Vayar Elikim es ha'ar ki toiv. So I'm thinking to myself, doesn't that mean that Moshe Rabbeinu shone with the Ar Hagonos? Because if the source that he illuminated is from the Gzeira Shava, Vatero Isai Kitov, and it says Vayar Lekim Ar Kitov, that must mean that Moshe was shining with the Ar Hagonos. There's another Kli Yakar. Kli Yakar says that why did Moshe's mother throw him into the Nile? Says the Kli Yakar, she saw he was illuminated, so she said, just like the Ar Hagonos, you have to hide it. I have to hide my son. She took it as a sign from heaven. Now the Kli Yakar doesn't say that Moshe had the Or Hagonos. He just says that that Yocheved said, just like you need to hide the Or Hagonos, my son is also light, I should hide him. But according to our suggestion, it's not just like you have to hide the Or Hagonos, so too you have to hide the light of Moshe. The light of Moshe was the light of the Or Hagonos, because the source of the light of Moshe was Vatero Isai Kitov, Vayar Lekim Es Ar Kitov. The Satmar Rebbe writes that if Chazal derive that Moshe was illuminated from Tov, then it must be he was illuminating with the Or Hagonos, like we're saying. The Ma'or V'Shemesh also says that. Says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, in that case, if Moshe Rabbeinu, this is in honor of Reb Shlomi Enzer's bris tomorrow, if Moshe Rabbeinu was born on Zayin Adar and he was shining up the world with the Ar Hagonos, so when did he have his bris? He was born Mahal, but his Hatafas Dam bris was Purim. It says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, the first Purim in history was when Moshe had his bris. And that's why we have Purim, because everything later on has to be rooted in something in Chumash. So Purim is rooted in the Milah of Moshe Rabbeinu. And at the Milah of Moshe, you could imagine if he was illuminating the world when he was born, because he was born Mahal, then certainly 7 days later, 8 days later, when he had his Hatafas Dam, he was illuminating even more. So that's why I would add, La Yehudim Haisa. What was the first time? So Rabbeinu Ephraim says the first time was L'chol b'nei Yisrael Hayar, but there also it says past tense. So what was before that? Before that was the Purim before that, when Moshe Rabbeinu had his Hatavas Damila, and there was also Ar Nismale Kol Habayis Ar. So basically, there are 3 times in history. Each time it's referencing an earlier time. So the first Purim was in Persia, but really the first Purim was Makas Choshech, and even before that, the first Purim was the day that Moshe Rabbeinu had his Hatafas Dam Bris Milah. Now, question: what is the Ar Hagonos? Which level of Kedusha is the Ar Hagonos? What level do you think it is? No? Go, help me out over here. What level? 50. Thank you. Yes, 50. It's got to be the 50th, right? Now I'm thinking it's got to be, but we're going to prove it. Says the Vilna Gaon, V'nahapoichu asher yishlatu hayudim hema. What do you do when you say the word hema? You pause. Hema tipcha b'soy ne'ehem b'soy ne'ehem shvana. Only if you want to do it l'chachila, okay? You can do it b'di'evet, but if you want to do it l'chachila, b'soy ne'ehem hema, pause. Hema's 50. Says the Gra, Haman wanted to sink us in the 50 levels of Tumah. Now, the thing is, the Gra L'Shitase holds there aren't 50 levels of Tumah. There's only 49. Haman wanted to sink us in 49. And it was Mishapech! What happened? Hema b'seineim. The Gemara doesn't say what happened, but he says he wanted to get us down to 49 and Hema, and the Gemara doesn't explain further, which presumably means instead of us sinking to 49, we rose up to 50. When did we rise up to 50? You see anything 50 in the Megillah? You see anything that we rose up to 50 in the Megillah? Good, I wanted you to say that. We don't see anything that we rose up. By the way, the Nesivos HaMishpat wrote a perush on the Megillah. He says, what's the reason why on Rosh Hashanah we eat an apple? You're telling me the guy's rotten to the core, but he eat a sweet apple, dip it in honey, and now he's good to go? What does eating a sweet apple and honey do? So there's an idea that the Rebbeinu Shalom could make decrees, but in order for it to materialize, you have to do what is called a poel dimyon. You have to do an act that symbolizes the fruition of it. So, for example, the Ramban says, Parshas Lech Lecha, Hashem tells the Navi, go tell Bavel they're going to sink in the river, take a stone, throw it in the river, and say, Kacha Tishka Bavel. This is how Bavel should sink. There's an idea when you do a Maisa, it causes to concretize and materialize that which is supposed to happen. That's why the Chayadim says we have Simanim Leil Rosh Hashanah, by Kiddush Savana, Kishem Shani Roike Kenegdech. Why are we jumping? Just like I jump and I can't hit the moon, just say it. Why are you jumping? The answer is by jumping and not hitting the moon, you make it that the decree that the enemy can't get you will come to fruition. Haman, why did he make a gallows of 50 amos tall? Says the Megillah Sesarim, says in the Sivas HaMishpat, because he wanted to trap us in the 50 levels of Tumah, and by making a gallows 50 amos tall, that was his Poyel Dimyon. He knew the Chai Adam. That was his Poyel Dimyon to capture us in the 50 levels of Tumah. Little did he know that just the opposite happened. So I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean just the opposite happened? What, we got to the 50th level of Kedusha? There's something about the 50th level of Kedusha that happened on Purim? Must be. Yes. Hema! B'saneh. We were Zocha to the 50th level. What's that? I found the Shlach Kodesh says the Ar Hagonos happens to be the Shar Chamisha. So the Ar Hagonos that we're Zocha to on Purim is the 50th level of Kedusha. Haman wanted to trap us down the 50th level of Tumah. He made a gallows 50 amos tall. He thought we were going to fall down to the abyss. Little did he know that by making that gallows 50 amos tall, and we hanged him, I can't even remember now anymore. We didn't chazer that enough this year. I feel we needed to, you see, you thought I did it too many times. It's very important. Ikar halimar hiya chazara. He was hanged, right? His sons were hung. Right? Because they were dead. They were dead, so they were hung. But Haman was hanged. So, in any event, Haman's plan backfired on him. He thought he was going to get us down to 50th level of Tumah. Through Haman, we're Zoicha to reach the 50th level of Kedusha. How? The Aragonos. The Aragonos. Just as an aside, there are versions that say, by the way, my friend Reb Shol Kadavar, he's very close with Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. You know, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef writes in the Yalkut Yosef that Bnei Banav loimdim Torah b'Bnei Brak. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef says, who's Bnei Banav? Rabbi Akiva. He says Rabbi Akiva. And others learn like that as well. Why? Because Rabbi Akiva is the only one who got to the full 50th level. Because Haman thought he's going to trap us in the 50th level of Tumah. So the ultimate v'nahapoichu is that from Haman came Rabbi Akiva, who's zoicha to the 50th level of Kedusha. Bottom line is, friends, you're about to experience a light, the likes of which we're not zoicha the whole year. But you need to be prepared for it. Because if you don't take advantage of it, you could be like a bat in daylight. And then, not only do you not take advantage of it, you could be in complete darkness and lose out on the great opportunity that Purim offers us. We have to remember, Purim is a day of La Yehudim Haisa Eira. Why in the past? Because we're going back to the great Makkah of Makkahs B'chayros. Friends, just like the great Makkah of Choshech, just like Choshech prepared us for the Geula. 30 days later was the Geula. Purim and Pesach are hugging each other, like we always say. Purim is preparing us for Pesach. The great light of Purim is not unrelated to Pesach. It's the light of the beginning of the Geula. It's the light of the Aragonos. La Yehudim Haisa Eira. Make sure that you have a good plan for Purim. If right now your schedule is that you're going to be driving around for 3 hours delivering shalach manas, make sure you change it very quickly. Don't blow the day. You don't have to give 500 shalach manas. It's a day of unparalleled kedusha. You also even don't have to give 2 shalach manas. You only have to give 1 shalach manas. If you want to give 2, give 1 yourself and give 1 al yedei shliach. But it's too holy a day just to flap your wings like a bat in darkness. You want to take advantage of the Layehudim Hoysa'ira. It's a light, the likes of which we're not zoicha to the whole year. It's the light that begins the process of the Geula. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu be mevarich all of us that we should be zoicha to tap in and to access a little bit from this great light to prepare us for the Yom Tov of Pesach and the Geula Shalema. By the way, everyone's invited to our house on Purim, right? Purim's coming. On the official schedule, you can keep it on, is 2:30 to 3:30. We're going to have Toyameha. We're going to have other things that we do on Purim. I can't even think right now, but you're all invited. And also, I just want to make a very important announcement. I have over here a very dear friend of mine, Reb Shaul Kadavar, who is a Talmid Chacham Muflag, Mamish Talmid Chacham Muflag, and he needs everybody's help. He has hamlatzos from many Gedolei Yisrael. Every year on Tainus Esther, it's a very big zuchus to help him. I know him personally. Whatever you can do to help him out, it will be what he's going to do for you is more than what you do for him. Thank you very much.